In the past, one of my favorite methods for making money was rolling flasks. There was a huge market for it because almost everyone needs flasks, and it was something that a lot of people found menial or tedious. Now, I wasn't exactly getting rich off of this. I would make a few exalts, and then I'd go on to more profitable things. But it was excellent at making those first few exalts in the critical first day or second day of the league. And then, the bestiary apocalypse happened, and the price of flasks went down and down and down to almost nothing, since why would you pay for a flask when you could just get it practically for free from all those yellow beasts that do technically have a value, but you're never going to sell them anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Only the truly lazy bought most of their flasks, with the sole exception being things like an enduring flask or a quicksilver of adrenaline. But of course then those got nerfed and nobody was buying them anyway, or at the very least they weren't willing to pay very much. In 3.15 we saw a huge Flask Overwork. And then in 3.16 we saw a second huge Flask Overwork, including a big change to flask crafting. Eye level mattered. You couldn't get something in the story and have it be your best endgame flask anymore. You needed to get something in the endgame, except that you probably wouldn't, because currently a lot of flasks are hidden on Neversink's filter when they shouldn't be. There are dozens of flasks that you could find on the ground that are actually worth a tangible amount, 10, 20, 30, or even 40 chaos. What should you be looking for? Well, Quicksilver flasks that are item level 85 plus are very profitable. And several other 85 plus flasks will also sell very well. But even flasks that are 68 plus can often have good mods on them, so it can be decent money to show Magic Diamond flasks, Magic Quicksilver, Magic Stibonite, Basalt, Granite, Quartz, Jade, and both Divine and Eternal Life flasks. This is far from an exhaustive list because there's so many combinations and permutations of valuable flask mods that people use that even something like a gold flask could have value to someone with the right mods on it. So keeping that in mind, you will have to do a lot of price checking for yourself and a lot of research. But after you've picked up a bunch of these flasks, especially the item level 84 plus ones, what happens if they don't have good mods on them? Should you just toss them out and go on with your day? Well, you could, but a far more efficient thing to do a lot of the time is to roll them. And to test this, I bought an entire stash tab of flasks, though about 70 of them. I paid between 5 and 10 chaos apiece, and then I got to rolling them. I used under an exalt worth of alterations to roll all the flasks. As I was doing so, I was basically just price checking as I went. I found that certain prefixes were a little more valuable. Things like increased effect is very good, especially if you have something like a Mage Blood, which means a perfect flask with increased effect will sell for a lot. Similarly, I noticed that things that paired well with the flask's intended purpose tended to sell at a high premium. A diamond flask with a tier 1 crit mod would often sell a lot better than a granite flask with a tier 1 crit mod, but the granite flask would still usually sell for 20 or 30 chaos. Similarly, some completely wild things ended up selling. Things that I didn't expect, such as the less duration and immunity to ailment things. Although generally I noticed that immunity to freezing, and for whatever reason immunity to shock didn't do well either, probably because most people are going for reduced effect. If you found this helpful, and you want to know more about making money in Path of Exile, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and join my Discord, as I am going to be talking about some other money-making and crafting strategies in the near future. On the other hand, if you like other games, then be sure to subscribe to my second channel, 10 Gaming Thoughts, where I talk about non-action RPG content, along with giving my thoughts on the state of the gaming industry. These are just some examples of things that I've sold, and you might say, well, but how much could you have been making? If you bought 70 flasks, and if it was 5 to 10 C each, that's an average of 7.5 C per flask, and so you spent 525 chaos. We can bump that up to an even 700 for the entire thing because you said you spent under an exalt rolling them. Shortly after that, I put all the flasks up for sale, and this is the tab where I put all the profits. There's one exalt in there, and there's around 1,500 chaos, which is about 3 times what I paid, except I didn't sell all the flasks. I sold half to a third, which means I got 1,500 chaos from around 350 chaos invested, and that's not even counting the exalt sitting there. So now that I've talked about some basics, and now that I've established that this is very profitable, what should you do when you're actually rolling them? Well, first of all, go slowly. Let's say you have a Quicksilver flask. You want it to be item level 85 plus, and ideally you want it to have increased effect and be of adrenaline. This will be your most money. But let's say you got one that instead was gain charges when hit. This is also a very popular prefix. And you had attack speed. As it turns out, attack speed often sells very well. I don't know if that specific combo on a Quicksilver will sell or won't sell. You'll have to try it for yourself. But for example, recently I sold a Basalt Flask with that exact combo for 130 Chaos Orbs. So they definitely can sell. In general, higher tier mods are better. Things like tier 1 crit will be a lot more valuable than tier 3 crit. And tier 3 crit might not be worth your time selling if it has a bad prefix. Similarly, things like the immunities, if you use a flask while bleeding, you're immune to bleeding, don't tend to sell as well. Instead, reduced effect of curses, reduced effect of shock, attack speed, movement speed, increased armor, increased evasion rating, these are my bread and butter, and these are most of what sells. What I've done is I've price checked flasks in bulk, I've put them up for sale, and then I'll just lower prices over time. If a flask's up for 80C and it doesn't sell, I'll lower it to 70, then 60, and then 50. Usually by then, it will sell. If it doesn't, and let's say it goes down to about 20C, still not selling, alright, I'll just put it back in the pile and I'll re-roll it and try again with something else. I've been doing this for a few days now, and it seems like every day I sell between 8 and 10 exalts worth of flasks. And remember, that means a cost of 2 to 3 exalts. So even if we go worst case scenario on this, I'm still making between 5 and 7x daily, passively just selling the flasks. I'm sure there's a lot of things I could do to min-max it. I could get my own 84 plus and 85 plus flasks instead of buying them. This would cut out the required currency input, and again, if you have flasks on your filter, you can just pick them up and roll them as you get them, you don't have to go out and buy them. Similarly, I could probably be a little bit more precise with my price checks. I could do things like add instilling and enkindling orb crafts, which might increase the value and make it even more sellable. And I do that for the absolute best flasks. If I have a flask that's something like increased effect, tier 1 crit on a diamond, yeah, I'm going to put an enkindling orb on that, and I'm going to try to sell it to someone wearing a mage blood. Because, let's be honest, if they spent 300 plus X on a belt, they're probably not going to care if they spend 2X on a flask to go with that belt. Aside of that, my other piece of advice is keep an open mind. Don't say, oh, well, this is a granite flask, but it has cast speed on it. No caster's going to use that, and just toss it out. Price check the mods. It may be that they're actually worth quite a bit, or maybe that they're worthless because I have noticed cast speed doesn't sell particularly well, although I have been surprised occasionally. For example, I had an increased effect and tier 1 cast speed flask that recently sold for 1.2x. I did put an enkindling orb on it, cut. I did enkindle it, it did have a 70% roll, and I'm guessing the person who bought it probably had a mage blood on. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.